Great to be with you today, Fort Worth. All right, let me hear you if you want to protect the First Amendment. Let me hear you. You know, I wasn't born in Texas, but I got here as fast as I could. And our youngest son, George, who's 2 and here today with us, was born here in Dallas. My other 2 children, Gladys and Lucy, who are with us here today, were born in Virginia, and we got here after my husband finished his term with the Bush White House. Got here about 3 years ago. And I work for the Becket Fund, which is a D.C. law firm that litigates religious freedom. We're friends with Kelly Shackelford. We love the work that he does here in Texas. And both organizations are out there defending our First Amendment rights to be free to practice our religious freedom here in this country. So why am I here today? Why are you guys here today? It's actually a really important day to be here. June 8th, 1789. Do you know what happened on June 8th, 1789? The great James Madison, one of our founding fathers, stood before the U.S. Congress and he said, we need a First Amendment to this Constitution. We need an amendment that's going to protect our religious liberty. And he stood before that great body and he said, we need to add protection for free exercise of religion in this country. And I'm glad to say that he won, aren't you? You know, I think he foresaw some of the kinds of executive actions that we're seeing today, some of the abuses of power, some of the abuses of federal government power. And he knew the First Amendment would protect against those. So let me tell you a little bit about some of the cases that we've worked on at the Becket Fund over the years. And then I'll talk a little bit about the HHS mandate. Really grateful y'all are out here today in this heat, so I'll try and be brief. We had a great case that we just won in the U.S. Supreme Court in January this year. Some of you may have heard about it. It's the Hosanna Tabor case. Do you know about this case? All right, the Becket Fund was asked to join, to take over this case actually after it was lost on the 6th Circuit Court of Appeals. And so we were asked to take it to the Supreme Court and brief it. And this case started out in a small little Lutheran church up in suburban Detroit. And there was a teacher there that got sick and she wasn't able to work. And the school tried to help her and accommodate her as much as they could. But, you know, it's a small school, very small budget. We weren't able to keep her on past, 8 or 10 months of her long-term disability. So she was let go and she threatened to sue them. And the Lutheran church said, are you kidding me? That's against our doctrine. You can't sue us. We teach in our church that we're supposed to resolve disputes internally inside the church and not sue each other in federal court. Well, she got the EEOC to bring a case against the church, and the government tried to tell this church that they had to hire this woman back, even though she blatantly disregarded their core doctrine. So we went to the Supreme Court, and guess what the Obama administration said? They said that after 40 years of the federal courts of appeals recognizing that churches are special when it comes to employment matters, that even though we have all these federal anti-discrimination laws out there that say the government can, muck around in this area, churches have special rights under the First Amendment. And for 40 years, the federal courts of appeals have said, yes, churches are special. Well, the Obama administration went in there and said, oh no, that's wrong. There's no ministerial exception. There's no special status for churches under the First Amendment. We should get rid of that doctrine that's been around for 40 years entirely. That's what they argued before the Supreme Court. Do you know what a President Obama appointee, Justice Kagan, said when that argument was made? She said, I find that amazing. I find that remarkable that you think the First Amendment gives no special protection to churches. Well, apparently the whole court agreed because we got a 9-0 unanimous opinion from the Supreme Court in January of this year. And that 9-0 opinion says churches are special, and there is a special relationship between churches and their ministers, and the government can't go around and muck up that relationship. So that was a pretty important case. Another case, let me tell you about, up in Washington State, we represent 2 pharmacists, Margot and Rhonda. Margot and Rhonda are Catholics, and they're pharmacists. And they're happy to dispense all of the thousands of FDA-approved drugs that are out there on the market today. But they just can't dispense Plan B and Ella, the morning after pill and the week after pill, because they believe that life begins at conception. And they believe that if they give those drugs over to those clients, they're facilitating an abortion. So these two courageous women and another organization called Ralph's Thriftway, which is a 4-generation family-owned Catholic pharmacy in Washington State. They've been around for 4 generations. These 3 courageous plaintiffs brought suit in federal court because the state tried to force them to provide these drugs against their religious convictions. Now, that's despite the fact that the State Board of Pharmacy had no evidence whatsoever that there had ever been a single client anywhere in that county that had been unable to get these drugs because of the religious convictions of a pharmacist. There was no evidence. They had none. And despite that, they changed the rules and they tried to force these religious pharmacists to give these drugs out. Well, they went to court. They said, you know, the First Amendment says we're protected in our religious freedom to be able to not dispense these drugs. And in February, we won, and we got a favorable decision by a federal trial court judge. And that trial court judge said, that violates the First Amendment, because you know what? There were a whole bunch of other reasons, secular reasons, that pharmacists could not dispense drugs. You know, a pharmacy may decide it doesn't want to stock a drug because it has too short a shelf life, or because they don't like the insurance that somebody gives you. They just aren't going to take that kind of insurance, so they can turn that client away. There's a whole bunch of secular reasons why you cannot dispense a drug. But here, the state was saying, precisely because of this religious objection, you have to dispense this drug. And that violates the First Amendment. He was right, don't you think? So that was Stormins v. Selecki. That was a federal trial court decision, and it's now an appeal. Unsurprisingly, the state appealed it up to the Ninth Circuit, and we're defending them at the Ninth Circuit. You know, there are lots of children out here in the crowd today, and I'm really excited to see them. My 3 kids are over here, and I'm not just an attorney, I'm a mom. And so when I think about religious freedom and I think about what it means to stand up and defend our religious liberty, I think it means not just for ourselves, not just for our country right now, but it means standing up for religious freedom so that my children and my grandchildren and your grandchildren can know a country that our founding fathers foresaw. So let me talk to you about this HHS mandate. We were the first law firm last fall to bring a lawsuit challenging the HHS mandate in federal court. We represent 4 plaintiffs. Belmont Abbey College, which is a small Benedictine college out in North Carolina, and they were the leaders in this charge. They stood up and said, we are not going to take this anymore, and they were the first ones to bring a lawsuit. So we took it straight to them. We filed that case in Washington, D.C. And then shortly after that, we filed on behalf of Colorado Christian University, which is an evangelical school out in Denver. Now, why is that important? It's important because this is not just a Catholic issue. This is an issue that affects everyone. Okay? This is an issue that affects evangelicals, it affects Jews, it affects Protestants, it affects everybody. So Colorado Christian was the first one out there to say, you know, we don't object to contraception as a general matter, but we do object to Plan B and Ella because of our pro-life beliefs. So we're going to take this to court. We also represent EWTN. Maybe some of you have heard about them. EWTN, of course, was founded by Mother Angelica out in Alabama, a cloistered nun who founded this great media empire. We love EWTN in our house because we watch the New Testament animated stories on EWTN all the time. But we represent them out in Alabama, and we also represent Ave Maria University in Florida. Now, we're happy to say that in addition to the 4 clients that led the charge this last fall, we've got now 23 cases with 55 plaintiffs in 14 states and the District of Columbia, all challenging this unconstitutional and unlawful mandate.
Let's go, Mama!
Now, why is this such a problem? Well, it's a problem because what the government is saying is, if you don't participate in this mandate, if you don't apply this mandate, if you don't provide these drugs and services the way we tell you you have to, then you're going to be forced to drop your health insurance, and you're going to have to pay a fine. And that fine is $2,000 per employee per year. Now, for our clients, for Belmont Abbey and for Ave Maria University, that could be about $340,000 the first year. For Colorado Christian, it's $500,000. And for EWTN, it's close to $600,000 a year for the right to believe and profess your own religious faith. We have called these faith fines. Now, do y'all think that the government should be able to impose a faith fine like this? No! So what we need to do is we need to tell the government that we don't accept this mandate. Okay? And there's a petition that's going around in the audience today, a Becket Fund petition. It's called our I Believe petition. And it's a petition to tell President Obama we still believe in the First Amendment of the United States Constitution. So, if you believe, please sign the petition. If you don't get to sign it today, go to becketfund.org. That's Becket Fund with one T. Becketfund.org. Sign the petition. Check out the resources that we have on there for the HHS mandate. We've got lots of fact sheets and interesting information about the mandate. And you can become well informed. And I just want to thank you for being here today. I want to thank you for your interest in this issue. I want to tell you that if you are interested in helping out, all you need to do is just be informed. You know, read up, understand the issues, be informed, talk to your neighbors, write your congressman. You know, it's so important. This is an interesting little feedback that we got from some congressmen, Blunt and Issa and Fortenberry. They're hearing a lot from some special interest groups that are trying to tell them that they're just out of touch, that the legislation that they've proposed to protect conscience rights is just from the dark ages. And they're hearing a lot from those people. But they need to hear from you guys, okay? So we need you to write them some letters and say, we believe in what you're doing, we support you, and we're gonna stand behind you. So please do that. And I just want to say thank you all for being out here today. Go to the becketfund.org website and still say to President Obama, I believe. Thank you so much. God bless you, and God bless Texas, and God bless America.